The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest room in the known galaxy. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of species sat in floating chairs that circled a central platform. Light from 3 captured stars poured through crystal walls. It was meant to make visitors feel small. It always worked. Ambassador Hannah Yoon stood alone on the central platform. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had served as Earth's voice to the Galactic Council for 22 years. In all that time, she had never once raised her voice. She had never begged. She had never cried. Today would be no different. High Arbiter Volnus looked down at her from his elevated throne. He was Teleron, a species that lived for thousands of years. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes held the boredom of someone who had seen everything and found most of it disappointing. He tapped his long fingers on the armrest. "The motion has been presented," Volnus said. "Delegate Morris, please read the resolution." Morris stood. He was Kethvari, tall and thin, with 4 arms and a face that always seemed to be smiling even when he was being cruel. Especially when he was being cruel. "The Galactic Council hereby enacts the containment protocol," Morris read. "Humanity is recognized as a dangerously unpredictable species. Their expansion threatens the stability of civilized space. Effective immediately, human presence is restricted to 3 star systems: Sol, Proxima, and Tau Ceti. All human colonies beyond these boundaries must be abandoned within 1 standard year. Human ships are forbidden from entering Council space without explicit permission. Human technology sharing is suspended. Human votes on all Council matters are revoked."
Oh.
The hall was silent. Then, slowly, applause began. It grew louder. Hundreds of delegates clapped their hands or tentacles or wings. Some laughed. A few cheered. Hannah stood perfectly still. Her face showed nothing. Volnus raised a hand for silence. "Ambassador Yoon, do you wish to speak before the vote?" Every eye in the chamber turned to the small human woman. Some expected tears. Some expected anger. Some expected desperate pleading. Humans were emotional creatures, after all. Everyone knew that Hannah looked up at Volnus. Then she looked at Morris. Then she slowly turned to look at the entire assembly, the thousands of faces staring down at her with contempt or amusement or simple indifference. "Oh," she said quietly. "I have nothing to say," Morris laughed. "Nothing? Not even a defense?" "I expected more fire from humanity's representative." "I am sure you did," Hannah replied. "Then you accept the resolution?" Hannah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "We understand," that was all. 2 words. She bowed once, turned, and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. No one had expected this. Humans always fought. Humans always argued. Humans never just accepted. Volnus leaned toward Morris. "Well, that was easier than expected. Perhaps we finally tamed them." Morris nodded, still smiling. "They know their place now. Small creatures always learn eventually." The vote was unanimous. The containment protocol passed without a single objection. That night, High Arbiter Volnus held a celebration. Wine flowed. Music played. Delegates congratulated each other on finally putting humanity in its place. For 87 years, humans had been a problem. They asked too many questions. They pushed too hard. They refused to accept that they were a young species with no real importance. Now, that problem was solved, 10,000 light-years away. On a blue planet called Earth, Admiral Yeho Kim sat in a dark room and watched the recording of Hannah's final moments in the council chamber. He was an old man with a scarred face and hands that had seen war. He had commanded fleets. He had won battles. He had lost friends. But watching Hannah stand alone in that enormous hall, surrounded by creatures who saw her as nothing, made his heart ache. A door opened behind him. General Tai Wuxin walked in. He was younger than Yeho, with sharp eyes and a permanent frown. "Sir," Tai Wu said, "we received Ambassador Yoon's confirmation code. It's done. Yeho nodded slowly. 87 years. We gave them at T 7 years of our best. Our doctors healed their sick. Our engineers fixed their machines. Our soldiers protected their borders. Our scientists shared our discoveries. And this is what we get. Taiwu said nothing. There was nothing to say. Yeho stood up. His joints complained, but he ignored them. He walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of lights sparkled in the darkness. Millions of lives. His people. His responsibility. Do they know about Project Homecoming? Yeho asked. Oh, sir. We kept it completely secret. Not a single alien species knows it exists. Good. Yeho turned around. His eyes were hard. We spent 40 years preparing for this moment. 40 years building ships in hidden shipyards. 40 years developing technology we never shared. 40 years planning for the day they would betray us. He paused. I had hoped it would never come. Sir, what are your orders? Yeho walked to his desk. He picked up a small device and pressed his thumb against it. A green light blinked. Begin the quiet departure, he said. The words traveled across space at faster than light speed. They reached every human colony, every station, every outpost, every human ship, every human soldier, every human family. It was not an order to fight. It was not an order to protest. It was simply an order to leave. On the council homeworld, the celebration continued. Volnus drank expensive wine and laughed at jokes about human stupidity. Morris accepted congratulations for his brilliant resolution. No one noticed the small human transport ships beginning to power up their engines. No one noticed the human merchants packing their goods. No one noticed the human doctors quietly finishing their final surgeries before saying goodbye to confused patients. No one noticed because no one was watching. That was always humanity's greatest advantage. No one ever watched the small creatures. No one ever paid attention to the species that just helped without asking for credit. And no one noticed when those small creatures began to disappear. 6 months passed. The galaxy continued to spin. Stars burned. Planets turned. Life went on as it always had, but something was changing. Something quiet. Something that most species did not notice until it was too late. Captain Minho Park stood on the bridge of the humanitarian ship. At bright dawn, through the viewport, he could see the colony world of Thesan Prime. For 15 years, his ship had served this region. They had delivered medicine during plagues. They had brought food during famines. They had evacuated cities during natural disasters. The people of Thesan Prime called him the human who always came. Now he had orders to leave. His first officer, a young woman named Sujin Lee, stood beside him. Her eyes were wet, but she did not cry. None of them cried. They had their orders. Captain, she said, the Thesan governor is requesting communication. He wants to know why we are departing. Minho was quiet for a moment. Tell him we have been recalled to Earth. Tell him we wish his people well. Tell him nothing else. They are asking if we will return. Minho looked at the planet below. He thought about all the lives they had saved. The children they had fed. The wounded they had healed. He thought about the old Thesan woman who had kissed his hands and called him a gift from the stars.
Tell
them goodbye, he said softly. The bright dawn turned away from Thesan Prime. Its engines glowed blue in the darkness. One by one, 53 humanitarian ships followed. They had served the outer colonies for 30 years. They had never asked for payment. They had never asked for thanks. They had simply helped because helping was what humans did. Now they were going home. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated itself. Human merchant ships closed their shops and sailed away. Human doctors finished their last patients and packed their equipment. Human engineers completed their final repairs and said quiet goodbyes. Human teachers gave their last lessons and hugged their alien students. No one made speeches. No one protested. No one explained. They simply left. On the Vin homeworld, a massive earthquake struck the northern continent. Mountains crumbled. Cities fell. Millions were trapped in the rubble. Elder Thesic, an ancient diplomat who had served on the council for 500 years, Gate immediately sent a distress call to the Bright Dawn. There was no answer. He sent another call, and another. And another silence. The SSIK contacted the Galactic Emergency Response Center. A tired voice answered. Elder Vesic, we are aware of the situation. However, the primary disaster response fleet was human-operated. They have departed. We are attempting to organize an alternative response. Unknown. Perhaps 2 weeks. Perhaps longer. Slek felt cold. 2 weeks? There are people dying now. Children trapped under buildings. We need help now. You understand? But the human ships were the only ones equipped for rapid response. No other species maintained such a fleet. The line went dead. In the end, the VIN lost 4 million people. Not because the earthquake was so terrible, but because help arrived too late. When alien rescue ships finally came, the survivors asked one question again and again. Where are the humans? No one had an answer. Along the Kethvari border, pirates noticed something strange. The human patrol ships that had protected trade routes for decades were gone. At first, the pirates were cautious. They expected a trap. But days passed, then weeks, and no human ships appeared. The raids began slowly. A cargo ship here, a passenger transport there. Then they grew bolder. Entire convoys were attacked. Space stations were robbed. Within 3 months, the border region had become a lawless nightmare. Delegate Morris received reports of the crisis. He dismissed them. We have our own navy, he said. We do not need human protection. But the Kethvari navy was slow. It was designed for large battles, not patrol duty. The pirates were fast and clever. They attacked and vanished before the warships could respond. Trade along the border collapsed. Prices rose. Shortages began. Deep in council space, Dr. Yuna Choi supervised the final phase of the withdrawal. She was a small woman, with glasses and messy hair. She looked like a librarian, but she was the most brilliant engineer humanity had ever produced. The jump gate stabilizers are ready for removal, her assistant reported. Yuna nodded. Begin the extraction. Leave nothing behind. Ma'am, the council does not know we maintain the stabilizers. They think the gates are self-sustaining. Yuna smiled, but there was no joy in it. I know, they never asked. They never wondered why human engineers were always near the gate facilities. They assumed we were just doing low-level maintenance. What happens when the gates start failing? Yuna looked at her assistant. Then they will learn what we were actually doing all along. The stabilizers were removed quietly, one by one. Human ships carried them back to Earth. No records were left. No explanations given. On Earth, General Tai Wuxin stood at the border of human space. A line of defense platforms stretched across the void. Automated weapons. Force fields. Warning beacons. Nothing could enter without permission. The last transport ship crossed the line. Its captain signaled mission complete. Taiwu pressed a button. The beacons activated. A single message began broadcasting in every known language. Human space is closed to non-human vessels. Do not approach. You are not welcome here. Then Earth went dark. All communications ceased. All signals stopped. The entire human civilization simply disappeared in the Grand Assembly Hall. High Arbiter Volnus laughed when he heard the news. They are sulking like children. Let them hide. They will come crawling back when they need our trade goods. Morris agreed. Humans cannot survive alone. They are too weak, too emotional. Give them a year, and they will beg for readmission. Only Elder Thesic was worried. He had lived for centuries. He had seen empires rise and fall, and he remembered something that no one else seemed to recall. In all his years on the council, humans had never asked for anything. They only gave. And now, for the first time, they had stopped giving. Thesic went to his quarters and began reviewing old records. How much did humans actually do? What services did they provide? What systems did they maintain? The answers took weeks to compile. When he finished, His hands were shaking. He requested an emergency meeting with the High Arbiter. It was denied. He requested a meeting with the full council. Also denied. No one wanted to hear about humans anymore. The problem was solved. They were gone. The galaxy continued to spin. Stars burned. Planets turned, and quietly, invisibly, everything began to fall apart. 2 years had passed since the humans left. 2 years of slow, creeping disaster. 2 years of denial and blame and growing fear. The first jump gate failed on a Tuesday. The Nexus Corthian route, one of the busiest in the galaxy. 3,000 ships were in transit when the gate collapsed. None of them arrived at their destination. They simply vanished into the space between spaces. High Arbiter Volnus called an emergency meeting. Engineers from 12 species were brought in to examine the remaining gates. Their report was terrifying. The gates were dying. "We do not understand," the lead engineer said. He was Teleran like Volnus, with centuries of experience. The gates were designed to be eternal. They should not degrade. But something was maintaining them. Something that is no longer there. Volnus felt cold. What was maintaining them? The engineer was quiet for a long moment. "We found traces of human technology embedded in the gate systems, devices we have never seen before. They appear to have been stabilizing the quantum fields that allow faster-than-light travel. For how long? Based on the degradation patterns? At least 70 years. Perhaps longer." Morris stood up. "That is impossible. Humans are a primitive species. They could not have developed technology superior to ours." The engineer shrugged. "The evidence is clear. Whatever the humans installed, it was far beyond anything in our databases. And now that it is gone, the gates are failing at an accelerating rate. Within 6 months, 43% of the jump gate network had collapsed. Travel that once took hours now took weeks. Trade routes were destroyed. Economies collapsed. Species that depended on imports began to starve. And that was only the beginning. On 17 worlds, plagues broke out. Strange diseases that the local doctors could not treat. They sent desperate calls to the Galactic Medical Authority. The response was always the same. "We are experiencing delays. Please be patient." What no one wanted to admit was simple. 60% of all emergency medical response had been provided by human organizations. The doctors, the vaccines, the hospital ships, most of them had been human. For decades, humanity had poured resources into helping sick aliens. They had developed treatments for diseases that did not affect humans at all. They had trained alien doctors. They had built hospitals on poor worlds. Now they were gone. And millions were dying because no one else had bothered to fill the gap. On the Council's eastern border, old enemies remembered old hatreds. The Drexen Empire had fought the Kethvari Collective 300 years ago. The war had ended in a fragile peace. For generations, that peace had been maintained by careful diplomacy. Human diplomacy. Humans had been the neutral party, the ones who talked to both sides, the ones who calmed tensions and negotiated solutions. They were trusted because they had no stake in the conflict. They helped because helping was what they did. Without them, the old wounds reopened. Warlord Ganak, the new leader of the Drexen Empire, had always hated the peace treaty. He believed his people had been cheated. He believed the Kethvari were weak. And now, with the humans gone and the Council distracted by 1,000 other problems, he saw his opportunity. The Drexen fleet crossed the border on the 2nd anniversary of human departure. 300 warships invaded Kethvari space. Cities burned. Millions fled. The war that everyone thought was impossible had begun again. Delegate Morris, for the first time in his life, felt fear. His people were dying. His worlds were burning. He went to the Council and demanded help. Volnus shook his head. "Our fleet is busy protecting the core worlds. We cannot spare ships for a border conflict." Border conflict? This is an invasion. Then perhaps you should have maintained better relations with the Drexen. Perhaps you should have continued the diplomatic efforts that kept the peace. Morris felt sick. The diplomats were human. They left because of the containment protocol. Because of my resolution, Volnus said nothing. His silence was more damning than any words. Elder Vesic finally got his meeting with the council. He stood before them with a datapad in his trembling hands. His voice was calm, but everyone could see the fear in his eyes. I have compiled a complete report on human activities during their 87 years of membership, he said. The results are disturbing, he read from the list. Humans had maintained 73% of the Jumpgate network. Humans had provided 60% of emergency disaster response. Humans had mediated 92% of interspecies conflicts. Humans had shared 41% of all new scientific discoveries. Humans had fed, healed, protected, and educated billions of aliens across thousands of worlds, and they had never asked for anything in return. They never requested payment for gate maintenance, Vesic said. They never billed for medical services. They never demanded compensation for diplomatic efforts. They simply did these things because they believed it was right. The chamber was silent. We treated them like servants, Vesic continued. We mocked them for their short lives and their emotions. We denied them voting rights. We excluded them from our councils. And through it all, they kept helping us. They kept giving. He looked up at Volnus. And then we told them they were dangerous. We told them to leave. And for the first time in 87 years, they listened to us.
Oh.
Morris stood up. This is absurd. We do not need humans. Send a message to Earth. Tell them we demand they resume their services. They have no choice. Vesic laughed bitterly. You still do not understand. We never had power over them. They stayed because they wanted to help. Now they have stopped wanting. Volnus ordered a probe sent to Earth space. It was vaporized before it crossed the border. He sent a diplomatic message. No response. He sent 100 messages. Silence. The humans were not coming back. That night, alone in his chambers, Volnus looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the defense platforms and the warning beacons, humanity was living, building, growing, without the galaxy, without the council, without anyone who had ever called them primitive. For the first time in his 3,000 years of life, High Arbiter Volnus felt something he had never felt before. Regret, but regret would not fix the jump gates. Regret would not stop the plagues. Regret would not end the war, and somewhere in the darkness, the Drexen fleet was turning toward the Council's homeworld. 3 years after humanity left, the Drexen fleet reached Nexus Prime. High Arbiter Volnus stood in the command center and watched the enemy ships approach. There were 500 of them now. Warlord Ganak had conquered 12 systems in his march toward the Council homeworld. Each victory made him stronger. Each victory made the Council weaker. How many ships do we have? Volnus asked the military commander. A Teleron named Osik checked his console. 237. Most of our fleet is scattered across the galaxy, protecting trade routes and fighting fires. We cannot recall them in time. Can we win? Osik was quiet for a long moment. No, High Arbiter. We cannot. Volnus closed his eyes. 1,000 years of peace. 1,000 years of prosperity. All about to end because of a war that should never have happened. Because of a resolution that should never have. Past, Morris burst into the command center. His 4 arms were shaking. His face, for once, was not smiling. You must do something. Contact our allies. Call for reinforcements. Our allies are dealing with their own problems, Volnus said coldly. The Vin are still recovering from famine. The Thesan are fighting plague. The Kethvari have lost half their fleet already. There is no one left to call.
Oh, then?
Then there must be something. Someone. Volnus opened his eyes and looked at Morris with disgust. There was someone. A species that protected us for almost a century. A species that maintained our infrastructure, healed our sick, and kept our enemies at peace. But we sent them away. You sent them away. Morris stumbled backward as if struck. Elder Vesic stepped forward. There is one option. We could ask the humans for help. They will not answer, Volnus said. We have tried 100 times. We've sent demands, orders, threats. Vesic shook his head. We never asked. Not properly. Not honestly. Volnus was silent. His pride screamed against it. His entire being rejected the idea of begging to a species he had dismissed as inferior. But pride would not stop the Drexen warships. Pride would not save his people. Very well, he said at last. Send a message. A real message. Tell them. Tell them we are sorry. Tell them we need help. Tell them we will give them anything they want. The message was sent. It traveled across the void at faster than light speed. It passed through the defense platforms. It reached Earth. Weeks passed. The Drexen fleet grew closer. Battles were fought and lost. Cities were evacuated. Hope faded. Then, on a cold morning, a response came. Ambassador Hannah Yoon appeared on the view screen. She looked older now. Her hair was completely white. But her eyes were the same. Calm, steady, unreadable. Volnus stood before the screen. For once, he did not sit on his throne. He stood like a supplicant before a judge. Ambassador Yoon, he said, thank you for responding. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Hi, Arbiter Volnus. I received your message. I must say it was quite different from your previous communications. The previous messages were mistakes. I am here now to ask properly, to beg if necessary. Beg for what? Volnus swallowed his pride. Help. We need your help. The Drexen are coming. Our fleet cannot stop them. Millions will die. Perhaps billions. I am begging for humanity to intervene. Hannah tilted her head slightly. 3 years ago, the Council passed a resolution. Let me read it to you. She lifted a datapad. Humanity is recognized as a dangerously unpredictable species. Their expansion threatens the stability of civilized space. Human presence is restricted. Human votes are revoked. Human technology sharing is suspended. She lowered the datapad. Those were your words. Your decision. Why would you want dangerous and unpredictable creatures to help you now? Volnus had no answer. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Morris pushed forward. Please, I know I was wrong. I know I made a terrible mistake. But there are innocent people on this world. Children, families. They did nothing wrong. Please do not punish them for my arrogance. Hannah looked at Morris for a long moment. Something flickered in her eyes. Perhaps pity. Perhaps something else. I will relay your message to our leadership, she said. I can promise nothing. The screen went dark. On Earth, Admiral Yeho Kim watched the recording of the conversation. He sat in his command chair, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of the human fleet. A fleet larger and more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. A fleet that had been built in secret for decades. General Tai Wu-shin stood beside him. Sir, what are your orders? Yeho did not answer immediately. He watched Volnus's face. He saw the fear, the desperation, the humiliation. Part of him felt satisfaction. They had treated humanity like dirt for 87 years. They had mocked and dismissed and excluded. Now they were paying the price. But another part of him felt something else. Play Morris's statement again, he said. The recording replayed. There are innocent people on this world. Children, families, they did nothing wrong. Yeho closed his eyes. Innocent people, children, families. How many would die if he did nothing? Dr. Yuna Choi entered the command center. She had been listening to the discussion. Admiral, may I speak? Go ahead. Yuna walked to the central display. I understand the desire to let them suffer. After everything they did to us, they deserve it. But if we let them die, what does that make us? Practical, Taiwu said. No, Yuna shook her head. It makes us exactly what they accused us of being. Dangerous, unpredictable, monstrous. She looked at Yeho. We left because they did not appreciate us, because they did not respect us. But we did not leave to become something worse. We left to protect ourselves. To grow. To prove that humanity is better than they believed. Yeho was quiet for a long time. The command center waited. Finally, he stood up. He looked at the star map. At Nexus Prime, at the Drexen fleet, at the millions of lives hanging in the balance. They hurt us, he said slowly. They dismissed us. They treated us like we were nothing. And now they want our help. He paused. If we refuse, we prove them right. We prove that humans are petty and vengeful, that we only help when it benefits us, that we are no better than anyone else. He turned to face his officers. But if we help, if we save them despite everything, we prove something else. We prove that humanity is exactly what we always claimed to be: compassionate, generous, strong enough to forgive. He looked at Ambassador Hannah Yoon, who had joined via hologram. Hannah, send a message to Nexus Prime. Tell them we are coming. Not because they deserve it, not because we owe them anything, but because that is who we are. Anna bowed her head. Yes, Admiral. Deep in the shipyards of Earth, engines roared to life. Warships that had never been seen by alien eyes began to move. Thousands of them. Carriers and cruisers and destroyers, medical ships and rescue vessels. The United Earth Fleet was going to war, not for revenge, not for glory, not even for forgiveness, simply because people were dying, and humans could not stand by and watch. The sky above Nexus Prime burned with weapons fire. Drexen warships filled the void, their guns tearing into the Council's last defenses. High Arbiter Volnus watched from the command center as his fleet died ship by ship. Warlord Ganak appeared on the view screen. He was massive, even for a Drexen. His scales were black as night. His teeth were sharp as knives. His eyes held nothing but hunger. Surrender now, High Arbiter, Ganak said. Accept our terms. Your species will serve the Drexen Empire. Your worlds will become our property. Your people will become our slaves. It is the only way you survive. Volnus said nothing. What could he say? His fleet was broken. His allies were gone. His hope was dust. Then, without warning, a signal appeared on every sensor in the system. A jump point opened. Then another. Then 100 more. Then 1,000 ships poured through. Massive ships. Beautiful ships. Ships of a design that no one in the galaxy had ever seen. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading across the battlefield in a formation that looked almost like wings. United Earth's fleet had arrived. A voice broke. Through every communication channel, .com, steady, familiar. Is Admiral Yeho Kim of the United Earth Fleet? We are not here because you deserve it. We are not here for payment or gratitude. We are here because innocent people are dying, and we do not allow that. Ganak laughed. Humans, the small creatures who ran away? You think a few ships will save these pathetic? He never finished the sentence. The human fleet opened fire. Not wildly. Not desperately. They fired with precision that bordered on art. Each shot found its target. Each volley destroyed something vital. Shield generators. Engine cores. Weapon systems. The Drexen had never faced anything like this. Their technology was crude compared to what humanity had built in secret for 40 years. Their tactics were primitive compared to strategies refined over generations. Their fleet, which had seemed so unstoppable, began to fall apart. Captain Minho Park led the humanitarian squadron directly into the heart of the battle. His ships were not armed. They carried no weapons, but they carried something more important: doctors, nurses, rescue equipment, and enough supplies to save millions. All evacuation teams begin operations, Minho ordered. Priority 1. Civilian areas under bombardment. Get those people to safety. His ships dove through weapons fire, their shields absorbing hits that would have destroyed lesser vessels. They landed in burning cities and opened their doors. Terrified aliens, the same species that had mocked and dismissed humanity for decades, rushed aboard. The humans helped them, healed them, saved them. General Tai Wu Shin commanded the military operation from the flagship. unity. His tactical displays showed every enemy ship, every weapon, every movement. He gave orders with cold efficiency. Carrier Group 7, flank the enemy formation. Cruiser Squadron 12, target their flagship's engines. I want Ganek's ship dead in space. The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of fire and blood and destruction. But when it ended, the Drexen fleet was broken. 200 ships destroyed. 100 captured. The rest fled into the void. Warlord Ganek's flagship drifted helplessly, its engines dark. Human Marines boarded the vessel and found the warlord hiding in his command center. He was brought before Admiral Kim in chains. "This is not over," Ganek snarled. "My people will have revenge." "We will? You will do nothing?" Yeho interrupted quietly. "Your fleet is gone. Your empire is finished. Your war is over." He turned to his guards. "Take him away. He will face trial for his crimes." On the surface of Nexus Prime, Ambassador Hannah Yoon walked through the ruins of the Grand Assembly Hall. The ceiling that had once reached the clouds had collapsed. The crystal walls were shattered. The floating chairs were scattered like leaves in a storm. High Arbiter Volnus stood in the center of the destruction. He looked smaller than she remembered, older, broken. "You came," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "We came," Hannah agreed. "Why? After everything we did? Everything we said? Why did you save us?" Hannah was quiet for a moment. She looked around at the ruins of the hall where she had been humiliated 3 years ago, where she had been told that her species was dangerous and unpredictable, where she had been dismissed as nothing. "Because that is what humans do," she said simply. "We help, even when it hurts, even when we are hated for it. It is who we are. It is who we have always been." Volnus fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face, tears that his species rarely shed. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I was arrogant, blind, foolish. I saw you as lesser creatures, but you were always greater than us. Always." Hannah knelt beside him. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We do not want worship. We do not want apologies. We want equality, partnership, respect, nothing more." She helped him to his feet. "Your people are frightened. Your infrastructure is broken. Your economy is ruined. We can help with all of this. But this time we do it as equals. No more junior species. No more restrictions. No more insults." Volnus nodded. "Anything. Everything. Whatever you want." 1 week later, a formal treaty was signed. Humanity received full membership in the Galactic Council. Voting rights. Trade access. A seat on the High Council. And a formal apology that was broadcast to every species in the galaxy. Delegate Morris delivered the apology himself. His voice shook as he spoke the words. He admitted his mistakes. He acknowledged human contributions. He asked for forgiveness. Elder Thesic watched the ceremony from his private chambers. When it was over, he took out his journal, a habit he had maintained for 500 years, and began to write. "I have lived for 900 years. I have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. I have seen species ascend to glory and crumble to dust, but I have never seen anything like humanity. They are not conquerors. They could have let us die and claimed our worlds for themselves. They chose mercy. They are not saints. They are capable of violence and anger and vengeance. They simply choose to be better. They are something far more dangerous than either. They are kind. And they do not need us to be kind in return. For 87 years, they served us without recognition. They maintained our gates, healed our sick, protected our borders, and shared their discoveries. They asked for nothing. When we offered them insults, they offered us patience. When we offered them contempt, they offered us grace. And when we told them to leave, they left, quietly, without complaint. They took their kindness with them, and we learned too late how much we needed it. But here's the strangest thing of all. When we finally asked for help, when we finally admitted our weakness, they came. Despite everything, despite our cruelty and our arrogance and our blindness, They came because people were suffering, because children were dying, because that is what humans do. I do not understand them. I am not sure anyone ever will. But I know one thing with absolute certainty. The galaxy will never make the mistake of dismissing them again.
We
thought they were small. We thought they were weak. We thought their short lives and their emotions made them inferior. We were wrong. Humanity is not inferior. Humanity is not superior. Humanity is simply human, and that is enough. That has always been enough. Thesic set down his pen. Through his window, he could see the human ships still orbiting Nexus Prime. They were helping with reconstruction, delivering supplies, healing the wounded, building what the war had destroyed, asking for nothing in return. He smiled. For the first time in centuries, he felt something he had almost forgotten: hope.